All right. Good morning, everyone, to the All About Nothing podcast kind of daily show. I am Barrett Gruber, host of the All About Nothing podcast with Zach King. You can find me on social media at Barrett Gruber. With me always, Mr. Bill Kimler, host of Black, White, and Blue in the South with Dr. Jameel Brooks. You can follow him at Political Bill SC. We're here recording, going live every Tuesday and Thursday at 5:30 Eastern to bring you what is potentially the most real conversation you're going to hear between two individuals that live about 100 miles away. Not 100. What is it? About 60, 70, something like that?
No, 100 is more accurate.
Is it? Is
Yeah,
it
it's
really?
around 90. Yeah. It's a good hour and a half drive.
My electric motorcycle would not make that drive without at least one full stop recharge.
Well, I'll be honest with you. It is the preferred distance, so I am comfortable with having you as a neighbor, 100 miles away. That works.
Too
It's
kind.
also nice of you to say that I'm with you as always, because we know
Well,
that is not the case. So
as
to start
always
off the show with a lie,
As always on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
that's not true. I missed
Okay.
you last Tuesday.
As
Often as I feel like
possible.
it.
Okay.
I'll be with you.
That's fair.
But just don't go selling it as always, because people will be disappointed.
Well, or thrilled. Who knows? So I got into recently watching something that I you know who Tig Notaro is, I assume, correct? The comedian.
Yes, I know Tig from Star Trek Discovery.
Yes, absolutely. One of my favorite things that she has done. I thought Discovery was absolutely one of the most enjoyable Star Trek.
I'll be controversial. It is my favorite of all the Star Trek series, and I've seen them all. And I know Discovery has a lot of haters, and I don't get it. I think it is one of the finest productions out there.
It is. I think it's absolutely fantastic. You know, when and I get the technology behind the filming gets better and better, but the storytelling for Discovery was fantastic. I thought the Picard series storytelling was really good. I enjoyed it.
I thought it was the first two seasons I thought were okay. The third season had me crying at the end. It was beautiful. It was one of the finest moments in all of Star Trek. I thought the third season wrapped everything up, hit me right in all the nostalgia feels, and that's what it's for. It was for nostalgia.
Yeah.
It wasn't a wonderful standalone story, but in terms of properly bringing back every character, not shoehorning them in, it was phenomenal.
Yeah. What was Geordi's job? Was he basically like the museum
He was in
director?
the janitor at that point.
Pretty much.
He had become the sweeping of the decks and cleaning of the bathrooms. It was very realistic.
He was responsible for literally the upkeep of every retired ship, including ships that had been destroyed and then rebuilt for this, giant museum of old starships. Anyway, so Tig Notaro hosted this series for about 2 seasons on Funny or Die, called Under a Rock with Tig Notaro, where a guest would sit down with her, and she couldn't identify this person by appearance, because Tig Notaro will confess she doesn't really watch television, she doesn't really watch movies and things like that. She doesn't know who these stars are, but they will give her clues as to whom it is that they are, as far as so she had James Van Der Beek on, and he gave her clues, like he showed her a picture of a creek because he was on Dawson's Creek, and then he would give her he would give her clues, and that's how the show works. It's a very short little show, but if you have an opportunity to check it out, if you go on YouTube, there's a bunch of them out there. But Tig Notaro is one of the absolute pleasures in comedy for me, and I've really enjoyed seeing something that I didn't even know she did. So I was going to suggest that if you ever find yourself with some time, Tig Notaro's, or it's Under a Rock with Tig Notaro. It's very, very entertaining to see her try and figure out who these people are. She had Julie Bowen on one. Julie Bowen, of course, was the mother from Modern Family, so it's very funny to watch. But in my notes, I was also going to say that Tig also recently had a recurring role on Star Trek Discovery.
All right, well, let me give you a series I do not recommend.
Okay,
up for that?
Yeah.
Have you heard of the David Cronenberg movie from the late '80s called Dead Ringers?
I have heard of Dead Ringers.
It
I've not
stars
seen it.
Jeremy Irons as twin gynecologists, right?
Okay.
And they slowly go insane. One gets addicted to drugs, and then there's a relationship with a woman that both of them were after. And it was a very cutting edge film from David Cronenberg. As you know him, he does all these wild movies,
Right.
from The Dead Zone to The Fly to many others. This one was it was a classic film, and you should watch that film because it was phenomenal. Jeremy Irons, it's just incredible playing two roles. They reimagined that story last year and turned it into a 6-part TV series. And the role that was played by Jeremy Irons was taken over by Rachel Weisz. And she's a name that you probably kind of remember. And when you see her face, you'll know who she is.
Okay.
Famous actress, but she plays the role of twin gynecologist. But that show, while she acted her ass off, she was amazing. So I give her no fault. This show, over 6 episodes, all over the place, lots of zoomed in birthing scenes, lots of cutting into wombs, lots of babies extracted, lots of blood. I mean, it was pretty graphic for 6 episodes. And even I'm a horror aficionado. I've watched zombie movies, Dawn of the Dead and etc. since I was a kid. I've seen everything.
Yeah.
Even I was squirming in my seat during these 6 episodes. And it was very artsy. It was all over the place. It was a lot of jump scenes, a lot of time jumps that you didn't even know were time jumps, lots of weirdness. And so there was quality throughout, but it just wasn't cohesive, and I slogged through it. So I don't recommend that. I didn't know if that was on your watch list. Probably wasn't.
It wasn't.
Dead Ringers, the TV series, I do not give that a recommendation.
No, I will probably if it is somehow made it onto my watch list, I will make sure to eliminate it.
I'll tell you what's next in my queue. What I'm going to start watching today is 3 seasons of Dark Side of the 90s. So there was a documentary series that just went through the 90s and picked all the sordid news stories behind the scenes.
Okay.
All the dark moments. So I'm looking forward to reliving some of that nostalgia.
Who produced
those are
that
my college years and young fatherhood years.
Yeah. Who produced that one?
I don't know yet because I haven't popped it in to see, what the logo is on the front. But I do know that it lasted 3 series.
Yeah, I was just curious if it was a CNN sort of thing, because CNN did those series, Life in the 80s, Life in the 90s. That they did those. Those were.
I don't think it was CNN, but I'll follow up and let you know.
So former Breitbart headman Steve Bannon, I wanted to talk about this a little bit. Has claimed
my hero.
Has claimed that Donald Trump. I did not know that.
Well, I mean, you look at a guy who is the most slovenly, disgusting figure in the world, and yet is invited to be keynote speakers all over the place.
Yeah,
like that's what I want. I want all the glory and have to put none of the effort in.
He's not even so. And having done public address training, and through. And I know that I've lost some of it in the course of my my experience, but having done public address training or classes on being a public address announcer and giving speeches.
Are you confusing that with public cross dress? I'm trying to.
Only once. It only happened once. That was awkward on stage. But no, Steve Bannon doesn't deliver a speech in an effective way. I guess it's similar to how Donald Trump does a speech, where it's more like he's just sort of having conversation, throwing out just Goebbels. Sorry, not Goebbels, but close. No, but I wanted to bring this up, and I think we've talked about it a little bit, that he and several others are throwing out this idea that Donald Trump could potentially run for a 3rd term, or that they at this point, I guess Steve Bannon is guaranteeing that Donald Trump is going to run for a 3rd term and that he will win a 3rd term. And that on January 20th, now 2029, he will be sworn in as the president of the United States. And then he is now throwing it out there that he will be sworn in 2033 or 2029, 2023 or 2033 and like 4 and 5 terms, that we're just going to continue to elect Donald Trump. I don't want to age shame, but are these people that support Donald Trump not recognizing at all just where he is in the age schedule?
What did I tell you about him? This guy is going to live forever. There is something dark magical about him. He's made some sort of deal with the unholy deity. You saw his latest warehouse medical report. The guy is as fit as DK Metcalf. I mean, he is, and for a 79-year-old man, fine. He's going to live to be 150 easy. He's going to be one of those biblical characters that live, for hundreds of years. So I don't think that argument's going to hold.
And I have to hope that isn't true, and that he's not just already the embalmed version of Donald Trump from 4 years ago.
He has eaten, I mean, look at his diet, fast food diet, food with lots of preservatives. The guy is preserved. He's got the chemicals running through him that's going to freeze him in time for the next 5-6 decades. Easy.
He's also targeting some universities as far as their DEI practices. He's targeting because of it seems to be a very wide encompassing array of accusations against schools like Harvard and California, or University of California, Berkeley, that they allow for these protests and things to go on, and he's threatening, or he's in the process of cutting off funding for a number of these schools. There was a gentleman that I saw on actually he was on Newsmax as I was scrolling, who made the suggestion that all of these universities that are being targeted are ones that Barron apparently did not get into, that he was rejected.
Very, very interesting theory.
It was and it just happened to be.
I'll tell you something petty like that. That's absolutely within their modus operandi, right? They'll come up with something petty or dumb and then build an entire policy around it. I got another example of that, but we'll wrap up here on the colleges.
Go for it.
I'm not surprised.
No. So, I was just gonna say that it's coming to, I think some of the numbers are $2 billion to Harvard is what is going to be cut off because of their allowing for the Title 11 civil rights acts, the DEI, and allowing for protests and things like that. This is some serious money, but Harvard's existed since the 1600s. Like, I think they'll be okay.
They've got an endowment of like $80 billion. So they're not going to miss the government money necessarily.
Yeah.
But not every university has that.
No, that is very true. So,
you look at other universities caving in, you can understand why, but it's good to see a school have a backbone. MIT followed up after Harvard, making a similar announcement. And I'm hoping that will lead to a coalition of prestige universities, because regardless of what Trump says, you can't take away, the kind of people they put out and the education that you get there.
Right.
I hope others fall in line as well.
Yeah.
And they'd all support each other.
What is it you were going to bring up, sir?
So I saw an article yesterday where a London journalist connected some dots and found a perfect overlap between Trump's China policy and the tariffs that he's running here, and a book that Jared Kushner recommended to him on Amazon. So if you if you fast rewind and go back to 2016 or so, Jared Kushner read a book by a guy named Pete Navarro, who you might have been seeing in the news a lot.
Correct.
And Pete Navarro wrote this book about the evil China empire and how they're taking over the world with their economic strength and cheap goods and all of that. And Trump read it, said, "This is amazing. Bring this guy into my cabinet." So Pete Navarro was brought into the inner circle, and that has guided his policy ever since, this book from Amazon. Now, the kicker is that it was uncovered that this Pete Navarro used fake experts in his book to support the claims that he made.
You don't say.
There was a guy named Ron Varro who was quoted. Now, guess where Ron Varro came from?
Well, it sounds like it might be sort of a jumbling up of Navarro.
It's an anagram of Navarro, Pete Navarro's last name. And so Ron Varro was quoted throughout the book to support these Chinese tariff policies. And that is what's running our government today.
Yeah.
That's what's running our government. This wacky book that he read on Amazon that he believed wholeheartedly, fake resources and everything. And then that's typical. It's not just this policy, but going back to the universities, am I surprised that those are the ones that Barrett didn't get into, which may be an urban myth, but I'll believe it. And all these other dumb things that, he reads something, either misunderstands it or falls for the fake news entirely and then runs with it and then can never admit a mistake. So now we're stuck with it.
Yeah. Pete Notaro is he's I'm just pulling up his Wikipedia. He claims to be an American economist. I think anybody can claim to be an American economist. I'm constantly disappointed in some of the decisions that are made that affect the economy. Does that make me?
Listen, I have a bank account. I'm an American economist.
That's right. That's fair.
That's right.
He is let me see. He is a graduate of, well, shit, it doesn't say. I don't see where. Oh, Cambridge. No, he was born in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He was actually a member of the political party up until 2018. He was a Democratic Party. He was a Democratic Party member up until 2018. He did join the Republican Party in 2018. He is, oh God. So he's a graduate of Tufts University, which
Tufts, all right.
Yeah. He also got his MPA and PhD at Harvard.
How about that?
So I'm guessing that Donald Trump does not allow him to wear his Veritas tie in the Oval Office. I'm guessing.
So yeah. That's also something that I'm starting to struggle with, is that you look at Harvard and you have to think, and it's an assumption on my part, you have to possess a degree of intelligence and work ethic in order to get out of there. I mean, I went to a school called Drew University, little mini Ivy League. I mean, nobody's going to call it Ivy League, but we called ourselves mini, small liberal arts school in northern New Jersey. And I had to work my ass off to get out of there. But then you come out of there and then you're writing a book where you're quoting Ron Varro. Like, even if you're going to create fake quotes, to be so stupid as to take your own name, like I might as well quote Professor Kimler and put quotes in my book and make them up. I guess smart people are capable of being extraordinarily stupid
or advantageous.
Was there a brain worm that got in there?
I mean, I don't know. It's similar to how one of the things that through all this tariff situation, people on Fox News, Newsmax, they constantly point out that Donald Trump is the deal maker. He wrote the art of the deal. It was ghostwritten, not even ghostwritten. It was written with Donald Trump by another author. Like this isn't a book that Donald Trump penned himself. This was something that he would just throw out. And if you read it, which I haven't, because I don't have that sort of, I don't suffer from brain worms. I'm not impaired in any way, and I don't find it necessary to read Donald Trump's book. But I'm sure there's an idiot's notes guide to it that I could probably scan through. But I do know that it wasn't him that wrote it. He just has to take credit for it because he was involved in the writing. But any of these people, any of these Republicans that go on the news channels and whatnot and talk about it can claim that they've written books, but even if Ron, what was his name again?
Varro.
Ron Varro. If Ron Varro would come forward and acknowledge some of the quotes that are being used in Pete Navaro's book, that would be fantastic. I don't know. We have a country that's being run by idiots, and the intelligent ones that are in Congress and on television. I don't know. How can they turn this around? How do we right the ship? I was having a conversation yesterday with that it's got to come through some sort of a media outlet that is not attached to the corporate dollars that push the news out that benefits their pocketbooks, but it has to be influenced by some of those big names that we already have out there.
I worry that, as long as the people of the United States are falling short of our own capabilities, we can't expect differences in our leadership that are elected. And I got into a conversation. A local journalist posted a question about the HPV vaccine. And he's wondering, hey, or not HPV, it was hepatitis.
Oh, okay.
Right. So the hepatitis B vaccine that you get as part of your infant shots. And he posts the question that you'll see in a lot of anti-vax. Says, why are we poisoning our kids when the only ways you contract hepatitis is through sexual transmission, through drug use, through some sort of blood whatever, right?
Yes,
blood sharing.
Sure.
And he says, how many babies do you know are drug using sex workers? Like, that was the conclusion that this local journalist came up with and just posted the question. And then there was a lot of back and forth, and I hopped on and I just neutrally posted a link that says why infants get these vaccines, the hepatitis B specifically. And it was because it is actually a prevalent disease found in many, hundreds of thousands of mothers throughout the country. And it's just safe to treat the child at that age before something develops after birth, and it was a very clear article. Anyhow, one person responded to my link. And again, I didn't editorialize. I just said, here's some information that explains the answer to the question, and left it at that. Somebody replies, well, that's an article published by the WHO, so you can't trust it. And I wrote, why? And then she responded back, oh, it's because of the New World Order. And, and I was like, well, okay, if you're into conspiracy theories and tinfoil hats, I see where you're coming from. But New World Order and the vaccine? And she says, well, you sound just like CNN. So this is the level of discourse that I'm having with a fellow American. And so I'm thinking, until Americans elevate themselves, then my hope is diminishing.
I don't have a problem with CNN in their reporting on stories. I'm not always a huge fan of, say, the talking heads that they have on CNN. Although I think some of them are reporters that became anchors, and I do have a respect for Caitlin Collins, who I think is a fantastic reporter and a fantastic anchor. I think that she is doing the type of question asking that I want them to, even if she's in the White House pool and she's asking the question and he's shutting her down, she will just keep coming with it and coming to try and get him to. She's trying to get him off. I don't think she's trying to get him off a game. I think she's trying to get him to answer questions, but she pulls him out of what he expects, because his expectation is in the press pool for them to basically cheer him on and treat him the same way that his cabinet treats him. You watch those cabinet meetings, which I think we said something about, you and I either discussed it but we talked about like how early the president's first cabinet meeting occurs or something like that. And Donald Trump's actually occurred pretty quickly into his term, because once he had gotten all the cabinet officials through Senate, then he was able to do that. But if you watch the cabinet meetings, he literally just goes down the table and around the table of them praising him for how good.
Yeah, you can put a side by side of a Trump cabinet meeting and Kim Jong-un in his cabinet meeting, and then see the exact practice. The same applause, the same sycophantic praise, and it's almost a script that everybody has to follow. It is very, very weird.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to bring up, and I know this is going to be a little upsetting or depressing or whatever, but as of this morning, Kilmar Armando Garcia, the Maryland resident who is now found residency in the CCOT in El Salvador, the country of, is still there. They do have confirmation that he is alive. But his legal status is that he is a citizen of El Salvador, and El Salvador considers him to be a terrorist.
Well, I believe the U.S. senator from Maryland is in El Salvador.
Yeah, trying to get a meeting with him. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and I just have to think: would Senator Tim Scott or Lindsey Graham do the same for you or I?
No, not a chance. No,
nope.
I don't think. Well, it depends. How close are Lindsey Graham and I in this scenario? I mean, like, are we phone call buddies, or are we like texting buddies?
You live closer to him than I do.
Do I?
And we live to each other. So
I thought he lived near. I thought.
I'll commit right now. If you are whisked away to El Salvador, I will come looking for you.
I appreciate that.
Eventually,
I appreciate that. My Mexican is a little broken. I'm sorry, my Mexican.
I was going to say, do they speak Mexican in El Salvador?
My Spanish is a little broken. But I think what I wanted to. So when it came to the hostages that Hamas was holding, the Israeli hostages that Hamas was holding, there was an insistence on Donald Trump that he could get those hostages freed. And what we have in this situation is an American green card holder who is a legal American. He is legally allowed to be here in the United States because of the process that he has gone through, whether it's, you have to get an immigration.
He was here
lawyer.
Legally. Yeah. That's 100% regardless. And no, he wasn't MI3 or any of these claims. That those are all false narratives that have been drummed up to support this horrible action. But he was here legally.
But we essentially have two extremely inept presidents, El Salvadorian president and the United States president, that claim that they can't figure out a legal way to maneuver this case in order to bring him back to his family in the United States. And
it's like Trump invited Hamas into the Oval Office, and they just looked at each other and went, nothing we can do for the hostages. Sorry, we tried. What are you going to do? And
exactly.
That's it.
The closest we've gotten to that is him inviting Al-Qaeda, or was it Al-Qaeda or the Taliban? He invited the Taliban to Camp David. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I guess what I want people to understand is that we have two presidents that are intellectually too stupid right now to be able to figure out a way to get this individual out of prison and back to his family, because the Supreme Court has said there's not any evidence to support that he should have been deported. And ultimately, the Supreme Court in this should be the legal ruling matter. But they keep going back to this. Well, Donald Trump, I want people to understand we have two presidents that are too stupid to figure out how to legally maneuver the situation. And that's essentially what I want to leave everybody with, is that Donald Trump is acknowledging his ignorance in this situation. That's it.
I can't figure it out. No idea. What am I going to do?
Well, anything else?
Even JD Vance went online and criticized somebody saying on Twitter and said, what do you want the United States to do? Invade El Salvador? Right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly.
Really, that's where you're going with this. It says, you just spent the first 3 months claiming you can end the war in Ukraine. You're going to annex Greenland. You're going to turn Canada into 31st or 51st state. You're going to take over the Panama Canal. But this, you can't figure out.
Right.
It's like either you're a world power or you're not.
Yeah.
Get on it. So it's willful ignorance.
Yeah.
Or as our friend Anjane Davis said, AJ Davis, he says weaponized ignorance.
Yeah,
that's a phrase he coined.
He is, and he should get all the credit for that. It is weaponized ignorance. So, well, on that bombshell, I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you very much.
That went by fast.
Yeah, it did. Thank you very much, Bill, for being here. Thanks for everybody tuning in. Don't forget, you can follow me at Barrett Gruber and at Bill at Political Bill SC. You can catch us live every Tuesday and Thursday at 5:30 a.m. Eastern, because apparently sleep is not that important to us.
Are we not taking a spring break, Easter break? Don't we get holidays? I don't know.
I've never acknowledged.
I mean, this is a commitment to try to do this every week, 52 weeks a year. For what we're getting paid.
I'm getting 104. I may get 104 episodes out of you this year. That's significant, right? That's all right. Well, until next time, where Bill is going to continue to be forced against his will to be here. You all stay safe, be kind.
Yeah, I'm not expecting Trump to come rescue me. That's for sure. he says, "Sorry, Barrett's got you captured. What can we do?"
Would a CCOT? Would a CCOT residence there be a vacation from this?
It would.
Be safe, be kind, and keep your hands to yourself.